Welcome to Larry's Library, and welcome to episode 1 of a new series I like to call Savage Scans. Savage Scans is where I talk about my recent reads of the classic Marvel Savage Sword of Conan series, magazine-sized books they were, and I'm going to share some high-resolution scans that I've taken directly from the books, from the interior pages, a few, and from all the covers, and I'll give some credits for the books and talk a little bit about them. And I hope you enjoy this. I think I'm going to do these about once every 6 weeks or so, maybe. Not sure on that. I plan to do like 4 to 6 issues an episode. We'll see how that goes. And I am doing them in the order that I read them. Not necessarily in the order that they were published, for sure. Because I am buying these kind of piecemeal, trying to get a full run of them. Maybe not the first 10 issues, but everything after that I plan to collect. And there were 235 issues of the original Savage Sword of Conan, Curtis black and white magazine. That's not counting, I think there were a couple of annuals too. I have about 32 or so of them collected right now. I haven't read all those yet. And in this episode, I think I'm going over the first 4 that I've read since I decided to try to collect them all. It's a big task, a big quest. Now, like I said, I will present these in the order I read them. And I am trying to read the earlier issues first, but I haven't obtained them all first, so I'm going to skip around some. So this won't be in strictly numerical order. Hope that's not too jarring. But this was an anthology series, and I think it doesn't really matter what order you read them in, because the Roy Thomas and crew were really great at having a piece at the front where it described at what point in Conan's career did this particular tale take place. Fantastic. Now, there were some arcs that carried over across multiple issues, but even those weren't necessarily consecutive. Like, you might have part 1 in issue 12, and then part 2 of that might not be for 2 or 3 issues later. So I'm quite used to reading stories disjointed in comic books, and I guess that's because I started reading in the late 70s. And, I was picking up stuff that was older, mostly because I was buying them out of quarter bins or 10-cent boxes, or 20-cent boxes, I guess. And so they were issues from, earlier, and I would get them piecemeal. And it was fine because they had a little recap at the front. Never had a problem following along. I think it was Stan Lee that this quote's attributed to, but he told, as an editor, he told his writers that, look, any comic book could be someone's first issue. So we're going to treat the stories that way, and we're going to have a little recap at the front. Something to that effect. And I think it was wise. Certainly from a marketing position, it was wise. And Stan Lee, if nothing else, was a hell of a marketer. Let's get into Savage Sword. First issue I'm going to look at here is issue 21. Here's the cover. This cover is by Earl Norm, and he painted a lot of Savage Sword covers, and he was fantastic at it. So this was a 1977 issue. When you open up the book, there was always usually a pin-up in the inside front cover called a frontispiece, and this one is by longtime Conan inker Ernie Chan. Check it out. Love that. Just beautiful stuff. So Ernie Chan was a very accomplished penciler, as well as just a career of inking. Mostly, I think, Big John Buscema on Conan the Barbarian, the monthly color comic, but he did do a lot of work for the Savage Sword magazine here. And this is a great example of that. Just love it. So the main story in 21 is titled The Horror from the Red Tower. This was based on an unfinished and untitled Robert E. Howard story written by Roy Thomas with an adaptation assist by someone named Fred Blosser. I think he was also an editor or a contributing editor to Savage Sword across quite a bit of the run. Pencils here are, of course, by Big John Buscema. The inks are by Sonny Trinidad, and I really like the look of it. Now, another unusual bit about this one is the main character is not Conan in this story, but rather a warrior and friend of Conan's named Amalric. Conan doesn't even appear until the second half of this story. Next issue I read was issue 37 from 1978. This also features another beautiful painted cover by Earl Norm. Check it out. Frontispiece here is another one by Ernie Chan. Very sharp. Main story in this one is called Sons of the White Wolf. Another one written by Roy Thomas. He adapted this one from a Robert E. Howard story of the same title. But the original Robert E. Howard story starred El Borak, another character, not Conan at all, so a slightly different setting as well. Pencils here are by Big John's brother Sal Buscema. Inks are by Rudy Nebres. Always loved Nebres inks, and they look really good on Sal Buscema. Check out this very cinematic full-page opening to part 2 of the story. Love this. Love the camera angle here. Just beautiful. Part 3 has another great one-pager. This one is somewhat unusual because you get to see Conan on a camel sporting a turban. So a little bit different, but also gorgeous. Look at the sun. Yeah, the way they've drawn the lines from the sunbeams there, it just looks oppressive. You can feel the heat coming off the page. Just love it. And here's another beautiful one-pager. Check it out. Sal's Conan isn't talked about much, but it was pretty great, you got to admit. The backup story here is the second part of a Solomon Kane story called Moon of Skulls. This was written by Don Glutt and art by David Wenzel. Or Wenzel? Not sure the pronunciation. If you don't, let me know down in the comments. But I know David Wenzel from that Hobbit graphic novel that he would go on to do with Chuck Dixon later on. The only graphic novel adaptation of Tolkien's Hobbit, but I digress. And in the back of this issue, you have this beautiful full-page pinup. I don't know if you'd consider it a pinup or an ad. I guess it's kind of both. But it's for a Voltaire portfolio by the great Alfredo Alcala. Look at the great detail here. Just gorgeous. Would love to have that portfolio. Next, I read issue 13. So, went back a little bit. This is from 1976. Nice painted cover here by Richard Hescox. I don't think I've ever seen his work before. Not to my knowledge, anyway. If you know other things this guy did, let me know down in the comments. So, the frontispiece here is by Tim Conrad. Pretty nice. Majestic shot of Conan running. It looks like he's on horseback going through a trench. And he's got arrows raining down on him. His shield is full of arrows. Love it. The main story, which takes up most of this issue, is called The Gods of Baal Sagoth. This was yet another Robert E. Howard original, adapted by Roy Thomas. Art on this has some absolutely gorgeous pencils by Gil Kane, with inks, and I think in the second half it looks like finishes as well, by Ralph Reese and Dan Atkins. I'm not sure which did which or which pages are whose. It doesn't specify. I quite enjoyed it. Very cool story. It features Conan in an unlikely team-up with a big Vanderman named Fafner. He keeps calling Conan Little Man throughout this, if I remember right, which is not something Conan enjoys. It's not something he hears very often, because most guys did not tower over Conan like Fafner did. The second story is a tale of Solomon Kane called The Right Hand of Doom. This is another Robert E. Howard adaptation, this time being adapted by Doug Minch. legendary Moon Knight Rider, with some moody art here by Steve Gamp. Really like this story. This was a really creepy tale of a sorcerer's revenge. This issue was a few pages longer than most. It came in at 74 pages. Most Savage Swords are right at 64 pages. All right, then I read issue 24 with another great painted cover by Earl Norm here. Check it out. Love that awful hairy spider there. And this is, of course, another adaptation of Tower of the Elephant. Frontispiece this time around is by Vincent Alcazar. Don't think I'm familiar with his work, but it's quite good. So this is the second adaptation of Robert E. Howard's The Tower of the Elephant that Marvel did. And again, adapted by Roy Thomas from Robert E. Howard's seminal short story, Tower of the Elephant. And this time you've got art by the great team of John Buscema on pencils with more beautiful ink work by Alfredo Alcala. Just love this. I read in one of the some of Roy Thomas's notes, which he's written a lot of, and they're in a lot of the omnibuses and other collections, where he said he basically just wanted to adapt it again because he wanted to see John Buscema's take on the story. You know, Barry Smith had done it in the color comic book, years before, but they were constrained by page count and other things, and here they could take as much pages as they wanted to. So this is a longer, I guess a little bit slower pace, but just excellent adaptation of Tower of the Elephant. Just loved it. I did a video on Tower of the Elephant, the newer Titan hardcover, which is actually prose. It's not a comic book, but it has lush artwork in it. If you haven't seen that, I'll link that up in the corner here or below. Check that out. I go into a lot more depth about the story there. Love this adaptation. I don't know which one is my favorite. I'm kind of torn on that. I like the Barry Smith version too, and I love this one as well. But look at the detail in the Alcala ink work here. Just beautiful. Now, this issue also featured a backup story, which is actually a poem by Robert E. Howard, illustrated by Barry Windsor Smith, and with some inking by Tim Conrad. It's pretty cool. There's also a couple articles in the back, one about the AMRA Robert E. Howard magazine, and another about the Buffalo, New York chapter of SCA. I already knew about SCA a little bit because I remember when I was pretty young, as a kid, the local chapter of SCA. SCA stands for the Society for Creative Anachronisms. Tried to get me to join, but I found out that I had to dance, and I was way too backwards to dance. I'm not going to dance in public. No, I wasn't going to do it then. I'm not going to do it now either. So I did not join SCA, but it was funny seeing that pop up in this magazine. So I hope you like taking a quick look, relatively quick look at these issues of Savage Sword, and there'll be more to come. And if you like this sort of material, please give me a thumbs up and hit subscribe if you haven't already. My YouTube stats tell me that way over half of my views don't even come from my subscribers. They're people that haven't subscribed yet. So please subscribe if you like this material and you want to see more. And I'll catch you next time.